Imagine spending 90% of your waking hours alone, yet feeling more connected than anyone in a crowded room. Studies show that 1 in 4 people voluntarily choose isolation, and their brains light up in ways that defy everything we thought about social need. What drives a mind to thrive in solitude, and what hidden costs lurk behind that quiet confidence? Stay tuned as we crack the paradox of the lone wolf, revealing why being alone might be the most dangerous and empowering choice you never knew you were making. Buckle up. Every day, 4 out of 10 adults choose solitude over crowds. Yet they report higher confidence levels than the most social among us. Why? Because isolation rewires reward circuits, amplifying self-validation while silencing external noise. Miss this, and you risk misreading the lone wolf as either a genius or a danger. In the next minutes, we'll strip away myth, expose the hidden cost of endless alone time, and hand you the mental tools to harness its power without falling into its traps. Stay sharp, your perception of solitude is about to shift. 4 in 10 adults now opt for solitude, and the numbers are climbing faster than any social trend we've seen in a generation. On the surface, the image is simple: a person alone, a quiet room, a closed laptop. Yet beneath that stillness lies a psychological engine that most of us never consider. The first myth to shatter is the assumption that isolation automatically equals loneliness. Research from multiple labs reveals that a sizable slice of solitary individuals report higher satisfaction scores than their most extroverted peers. Their inner dialogue isn't a cry for connection. It's a rehearsal space where ideas are refined, goals are plotted, and self-esteem is quietly calibrated. But the hidden problem lurks in the balance. When the brain starts treating uninterrupted silence as its primary source of dopamine, the reward circuitry rewires itself. That rewiring can sharpen focus, boost creative bursts, and sharpen confidence, yet it also builds a tolerance for the very absence of external stimuli. The moment external input reappears, the brain may overreact, leaving the solitary mind vulnerable to anxiety spikes, social fatigue, or an unexpected craving for validation. What triggers that shift? Studies on social deprivation show that after just a few weeks of self-imposed isolation, the amygdala, our threat detector, becomes hypersensitive to social cues. A casual conversation can feel like a high-stakes negotiation. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and impulse control, may become hyper-efficient, turning everyday decisions into near-automatic routines. The paradox: the same mechanisms that grant a lone wolf heightened confidence also set the stage for sudden emotional crashes. The key isn't to abandon solitude, but to recognize its dual nature and intentionally inject calibrated social doses. So when you see someone immersed in their own world, remember, behind that calm exterior lies a silent engine, capable of both powering extraordinary self-growth and demanding careful maintenance. Understanding that engine is the first step toward mastering the paradox of alone. What if the quietest corners of a bustling cafe are actually laboratories where the mind conducts its most daring experiments? In those hushed spaces, a hidden circuitry fires, dopamine spikes when a lone thought turns into a breakthrough. Cortisol eases once the brain learns to sit with its own echo. That paradox explains why some people thrive on solitude while others spiral. Myth number 1 claims that anyone who prefers their own company must be socially broken. Neuroimaging tells a different story. Isolated individuals often display heightened activity in the default mode network, the brain's hub for introspection and future planning. When that network runs efficiently, confidence soars, problem-solving sharpens, and a sense of purpose deepens. The flip side appears when the same network activates without external checks, leading to rumination loops that amplify anxiety. Myth 2 insists that prolonged aloneness inevitably breeds depression. Data on long-term hermits reveal a nuanced picture. Some report lower stress hormones. Others experience elevated cortisol during periods of forced social contact. The key variable is perceived control. When solitude is chosen, the brain interprets silence as safety. When imposed, silence becomes a threat signal, triggering fight or flight chemistry. So how does the brain toggle between empowerment and impairment? 2 mechanisms dominate. First, reward pathways recalibrate. A solitary hobby, writing, coding, painting, creates micro-wins that release dopamine, reinforcing the behavior. Over time, the brain learns to reward internal achievement more than external validation. Second, mirror neurons lose regular calibration without frequent social feedback, dulling empathy and social cue reading. That loss can make re-entry into crowds feel like stepping onto a foreign planet. Here's the practical twist: you can harvest solitude's power while guarding against its pitfalls. Start with social microdoses, schedule brief, purposeful interactions, 5-minute coffee chats, quick video calls, just enough to keep mirror systems tuned. Pair those moments with a reflective ritual after each solitary block. Jot down 3 insights, then rate emotional tone on a simple scale. This feedback loop trains the brain to recognize when introspection is productive versus when it devolves into spiraling. Next, embed variety into alone time. Switch between creative tasks, physical movement, and quiet reading. Variety prevents the default mode network from locking into a single, potentially harmful pattern. Finally, practice external anchoring. Choose one daily cue, a song, a scent, a sunrise, and associate it with a brief grounding exercise. When solitude starts to feel oppressive, that cue pulls you back to the present, breaking the echo. Stay tuned for the next segment, where we'll uncover how digital isolation reshapes identity and reveal a counterintuitive habit that flips loneliness into a launchpad for lasting confidence. 1 in 3 adults now says they'd rather spend an evening alone than attend a crowded party, an upside-down statistic that flips every "loner is lonely" narrative on its head. This isn't a sign of social decay, it's a signal that our brains have rewired for a different kind of performance. The first myth to bust: alone people are socially inept. Neurologically, solitude triggers the brain's default mode network, the same circuitry that fuels imagination, strategic planning, and self-reflection. When a lone thinker lets the mind wander, dopamine spikes not because of external rewards, but because the brain is rewarding internal insight. That's why many introverts produce breakthrough ideas while sipping coffee in an empty corner. But the same circuitry can become a double-edged sword. Without external checkpoints, rumination can spiral into self-criticism, turning productive reflection into a mental echo chamber. The danger isn't the solitude itself, it's the lack of intentional boundaries. A study of chronic solitary workers found a 27% rise in stress hormones after 10 consecutive days of unstructured alone time. The lesson: solitude needs a schedule, not a vacuum. Enter digital isolation, the newest twist in the story. When we replace real-world interaction with endless scrolling, our sense of identity reshapes around curated feeds. The brain begins to equate likes with self-worth, and the quiet moments become battlegrounds for comparison rather than creation. Yet paradoxically, the very platforms that threaten authenticity also offer tools to reclaim it. Setting a digital sunset, a nightly cutoff for all screens, creates a predictable gap where the mind can reset, strengthening internal narrative over external validation. Now for the habit that flips loneliness into a launchpad for confidence. Purposeful self-dialogue. Instead of letting thoughts drift, allocate 5 minutes each day to ask yourself 3 concrete questions. What did I accomplish? What challenged me, and how will I improve tomorrow? Then answer out loud as if briefing a teammate. This ritual transforms the inner monologue from a passive echo into an active rehearsal, wiring confidence pathways the same way a public speaker practices before a crowd. The hidden engine behind all this is simple yet powerful. Treat solitude like a laboratory, not a prison. Schedule it, protect it from digital bleed-through, and give it a clear experiment to run. When you do, the quiet corners become fertile ground for growth, and the myth that alone equals broken shatters. So the next time you choose a night alone, remember, you're not escaping the world, you're entering a controlled environment where the mind can engineer its own breakthrough. That's the strange, empowering psychology of people who spend most of their time alone. Imagine a brain wired for solitude, lighting up like a hidden laboratory whenever silence drops. Neuroimaging data from Harvard's Center for Cognitive Science reveals that solitary periods amplify activity in default mode network, a hub linked to imagination and problem solving. In one experiment, participants who spent 30 minutes alone generated 40% more novel ideas than those in bustling cafes. That spike isn't a glitch, it's a biological upgrade, a dopamine surge that rewards internal exploration. No, skeptics often shout loners are doomed to depression, That claim collapses when we examine longitudinal studies from University of Michigan, which tracked 50 adults over 10 years. Individuals who regularly scheduled alone time reported lower stress hormone levels and higher life satisfaction scores than peers who chased constant social input. Their resilience stems from practiced self-reflection, a skill that transforms anxiety into strategic insight. Another objection pops up: isolation kills social skills. Counter evidence shows opposite effect. Controlled solitude forces deliberate practice of inner dialogue, sharpening empathy circuits. After a month of structured alone sessions, volunteers performed 25% better on emotional recognition tests than control group. They learned to read subtle cues within themselves first, then project that awareness outward. So why do myths persist? Media loves dramatic narratives packaging introversion as tragedy. Real-world data paints nuanced picture. Solitude can be engine of growth when paired with intentional habits, but it can also become echo chamber if left unchecked. Balance hinges on two simple rules: set clear purpose for alone time and schedule regular checkpoints with trusted contacts. Ready to turn solitude into launchpad, start with a 15-minute micro-retreat each evening. Turn off notifications, sit in dim light, and ask 3 questions. What fascinated me today? Which thought still feels unfinished? How can I apply today's insight tomorrow? Write answers in a journal, then share one highlight with a friend or online community. This loop creates feedback, preventing isolation from spiraling while cementing growth. By grounding alone time in evidence-backed practice, you harness brain's natural circuitry, converting quiet moments into powerful engines of confidence and creativity. Remember the startling fact that a sizable slice of adults now choose a quiet night over a bustling party. That flip challenges the old loner equals lonely myth. We've seen how deliberate solitude sparks creativity, sharpens focus, and builds resilient self-esteem, while unchecked isolation can mute those gains. By treating alone time as a strategic lab rather than an escape, you turn silence into a catalyst for growth. Stay tuned. Next, we'll dissect how digital isolation rewrites identity and reveal a surprising habit that transforms loneliness into lasting confidence.